SDH AM, John, hear you there. Thanks for dropping by, as you always do. It's a fairly busy show because we got a lot to talk about. That's what the weekends end up doing for us always. They give us a lot to talk about. So what we're going to talk about, a couple different things. Obviously, we got to talk about Atlanta United. We got to talk about what happened with Atlanta United and DC United. Abe Gordon joining us in about 10 minutes to kind of walk us through that. And just to give his observations on it, Garrett Chapman was in studio. We'll see if Abe actually was partaking in a minor league baseball game or something like that. But playing catch up with Abe, catch up with you guys about Atlanta United, DC United. We'll go through the stats and the numbers in hour number one and what you guys think about everything in the Twitch pitch. Hour number two, obviously, is Bart Keeler from the SoccerForUSPod. Last night it was the Gold Cup, and it ended up with Mexico getting a late goal and the win for taking the Gold Cup home. Final 2-1 in front of a lot of folks at NRG. It was officially sold out in Houston, and it was a louder fan base for El Tri than it was for the U.S. We'll go through all the numbers and the notes, and there's a moment that I did want to get into from that match that's a part of reffing down here, and if there are any other plays from the weekend that stuck with Bart, we'll get into it. But there was a hand and a handball thought. And then I also want to get into the notion of navigating a CONCACAF final. It has its own energy. It has its own ways and approach for navigating something like that. And there were folks on social media that were wondering, well, why weren't things called, or the consistency. We'll get into the context of a CONCACAF final also with Bart coming up in hour number two. A couple of other things that we've got to get into. We'll get into Major League Soccer, specifically what happened on Sunday Night Soccer yesterday, and the reinforcement that Wilfred Nancy is a class act. We'll get into that in hour number two. We've got all your transfer news. We've got all your transfer thoughts. Here's the layout for the week as best we have it right now, and as we are doing our own crutin as we go. We are efforting a couple of things tomorrow. Obviously, with the Gold Cup being done, we get to talk about the Gold Cup in earnest and in depth. And what we are trying to see if we can figure out tomorrow is if we can have in hour number one, the Super Friends get-together of our friends from Footy Prime north of the border. We have extended an invitation and an idea. And we will sit there and we'll go, okay, so how many of y'all want to come in and talk about Gold Cup? How many of y'all want to come in and we'll talk about Canada and the U.S. and all that kind of stuff? And so we are efforting the Super Friends coming together tomorrow morning in hour number one. Jess Charman, I think, is going to be joining us in hour number two. Tyler Pogrom, Dylan Butler. And on Wednesday's show, the Power Hour with Nino and Nico coming up in hour number two of activity on Thursday. And then we'll get you ready for the weekend with Atlanta traveling to Toronto. We will try to get our opposition research all squared away and get you ready for that matchup as well. Now, my guess is that someone is either waiting to go outside or has already been outside, or Abe is staring at an individual and knew that he had to come in early to make sure that we got this segment in before Chipper navigated everything going on and made sure that Abe took Chipper outside because Chipper had stuff to do. Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game, dropping by. Was I close?
It's a little bit of both. We've been outside. She is also staring at me like she wants to go outside again. So she gave me about 8 minutes of peace after our first walk, and now we're threading that needle. We'll find out.
All right. So you left. You left the pre and the post for Atlanta United and DC United to the guy that got engaged. I see how this works. It's like, tell you what, pal, you got engaged, so you're going to work. Was it a minor league baseball game for you this past week?
No, I was actually at a wedding in New Mexico.
Ew.
And so, Garrett stepped up to the plate and did a great job, and actually had a point to talk about. Imagine that, going on the road and finding a way to come home with something. So did better than I've done in most of the pre and post for the road trip to this point. But congrats to Garrett. I knew that was coming, and I knew he had to rearrange the schedule a little bit to make sure he could handle Atlanta United duty. So kudos to him.
So you knew this was coming. You had intel on this.
I knew it was planned. I knew there was a timeline and a date to theoretically ask the question, but you never know what happens. So glad everything went off without a hitch for him.
Yep. Okay. So let's break down your research in post. So the post game research after the wedding in New Mexico. Those Mike and Jason. They got stuck with a match in DC is probably the best way to start it as an open.
Well, I mean, of all the games on this road trip that you looked at, and this was the worst team. I mean, DC United's the fewest goals scored in the Eastern Conference. They had the fewest goals, the most goals allowed in the Eastern Conference. And unfortunately, Atlanta United couldn't find a way through. They do pick up their first clean sheet since the early stages of the season. So I guess that's something to comment about. I had zero cell service in the mountain ranges of New Mexico. It looked like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it looked like they went back to a back line of four. Yeah. So the formation they kind of started the season out on, and Saba back there on the left. And so you got a clean sheet out of it. You found a point. That's not nothing, but it's also not really what you need it to be if you're going to make any charge. And I think a lot of people are starting to come around, unfortunately, here, John, that we're well past halfway and the time is running out on this season. And I think people are starting to realize with the Atlanta Braves, like with it's just not going to turn around. There's so much talent on this roster. These guys are going to start hitting. I think you're getting a lot of that here with Atlanta United too. It's too late in the season. There's a lot of talent. That's fine. But if they don't perform together, it's still going to come out with 1 point or 0 points over a 6-game road trip. And yeah, I guess you'll take the one, but you certainly had penciled this one in as if you're going to get 3 points somewhere, it had to be here, and it wasn't.
Yep, and you got looking forward to the matchup with Toronto to try and get 3 points to wrap up the roadie before you come back to Atlanta. Starting lineup, Brad and net, left to right, Pedro Amador, Luis Abram, Efren Morales, and Brooks Lennon. Your two holding were Mateus Click and Will Riley. Then you had your three in the midfield, to your point, Saba, Miranchuk, and Miggy, and then Latte Lot up top. The back line, because of the inability of DC to score, 7.4 from SofaScore on Pedro Amador, 7.4 Luis Abram, 7.4 Efren Morales, a 7 from Brooks Lennon, a 7.2 from Mateus Click. And there has been, and this is something that we have talked about a lot, where you're seeing the younger players for Atlanta United. Once again, not a surprise to those of us here on this show, considering all the time that we have talked about the twos and all the younger players in the academy and such. But Efren Morales, a 7.4 on the day, and Will Riley, a 6.7, obviously because of the yellow card. But there is a louder discussion about having the younger players be a part of the starting 11 going forward and seeing where it can get you, because we've seen, obviously, Jay Fortune not a part of this discussion for the remainder of the season, but we've seen what Jay Fortune can bring. Noah Cobb, Matt Edwards, Efren Morales, all of those younger players. There's a louder cry that want to see what the younger players can bring to this discussion and kind of let the veterans see what the younger players are bringing to the table.
Yeah, and it's at this point for me where it's like the season's not going to get any worse by playing them, and I know I've kind of had that comment in that discussion with you a couple times, but I mean, you got 1 point on the road through what is this, five games or 4 games on this 6-game road trip, whatever it is. At the worst team in one of the worst teams in MLS, and that's all you could squeeze out of it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see the downside at this point, unless there's some sort of level of concern about whatever's going on in the clubhouse or whatever's going on future-wise in terms of, people's, thoughts towards the club or something like that on a long-term scale. I just don't see the downside of getting these young guys in there. I know we've seen a little bit of guys like Dom Chong Qui. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing more of him. Luke Brennan came in super, super late. We didn't really get much of a look, but somehow he still managed enough time to get a yellow card as well. So yeah, I just, again, you're talking about sitting down some of these guys that the front office went out and grabbed and paid a significant chunk of change for. And so I think the discussion is more about the optics of that than it is about what's going on in the field.
Yeah, and you know, we have the discussion in the Twitch pitch, which I anticipated this morning with what was going on with this game. In and of itself, the match. And Luke Brennan was at 90+1 for the yellow. Was trying to, and it was a good professional foul with Luke, where it was just like, nope, rush is going to happen. No, I'm going to grab the guy, and it's not going to happen. You know, we're not going to get that rush down the field to kind of solidify everything. But I mean, you look at this, and to your point. 2-0 loss to Red Bulls, 4-0 loss to NYC, 3-1 loss to Columbus, the draw with DC United. Now you have the road match in Toronto coming up this weekend before you end up with the 3 in a row at home, or the 4 in a row at home. And that includes the beginning of Leagues Cup play, but the 3 in league play with Chicago, Charlotte, and Seattle coming to town. And I mean, you have that one last opportunity with Toronto, who's lost 4 of 6. And they used both of their oopsies in a 2.5 hour period, blowing out Insigne and Bernardeschi last week. And they're like, yeah, we're done with them. And they were probably done with us beforehand. So it is one last opportunity. It is traditionally a difficult place to play. But once again, opportunity presents itself against Toronto, who's a team that's against the ropes, much like you are.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the upcoming schedule. I not that you're good enough to pick and choose, but I almost wonder if you just put more into League Cup and focus on that more than the MLS season. I just don't see a path in which you're really going anywhere here in the last 15, 14 games of the MLS season. I mean, you'd have to pick up 3 points at pretty much every juncture just to get into the playoff line. So, we'll see what happens in Toronto. Again, you started this road trip. You probably said, like, if you can get 5 or 6 points on the road trip at some manner of speaking, then you probably feel okay about it. Obviously, you can't get 5, but 4 is still on the table, and certainly that's probably the last look. If you don't pick up 3 points on the road, like I said, I'd probably start to look a little bit more seriously at Leagues Cup and see what you can do in there. And almost build stronger midweek lineups than you would on the weekend. And I know that works backwards from how most teams would attack it, but there's just not much to say about the MLS season, unfortunately. Start to build towards next year and figure out what works and do all that stuff. But I don't tell you, John, it's not been the season anyone thought we were headed towards.
No.
We've seen slow starts. We've seen down stretches. You thought maybe you'd figure something out. You moved to 5 in the back. It looked like a little bit more solid for a stretch. And then you had right before this road trip, you won 2 or 3 games there at home. And you said, all right, maybe they've gotten onto something. Like you said, 5 games now, you've got 1 point, and very clearly they haven't. And so it's pretty much back to the drawing board at this point.
All right, so then the reason that Atlanta was on this long roadie was because of the Club World Cup. How much time did you spend watching the Club World Cup, and have you to this point?
Yeah, I watched quite a bit. Obviously not this past weekend because, again, 0 cell signal, which, by the way, how do we have spots in the United States where I can't even get a signal? I don't know what's going on. I mean, that's ridiculous. So I didn't catch the final match here at the Benz. I do know PSG kept scoring goals even though they're down 2 men. But I've been paying pretty close attention. It's been fascinating to watch some of these South American clubs perform both against European powerhouses and all that. And so I loved it. I know, that going on alongside the Gold Cup, it's been a fun time for international soccer.
Yeah, no, we're going to kind of break down the Gold Cup in hour number 2 when Bart joins us. But you look at what happened with Gold Cup, and the U.S. loses 2-1, late goal by Mexico there, and it was a loud crowd last night at NRG in Houston. I don't know if I can still see what's going on the far end of the field because of all the pregame fireworks and everything. But your thoughts on the U.S. men's national team getting a runner-up in the Gold Cup to Mexico?
Well, a couple of things. Obviously, you lose right beforehand to the Swiss, and everyone's just panicking about what this team is and who's not there and all that. And look, not every performance in the Gold Cup was your strongest. I mean, you would have liked to have seen a little bit more dominance here and there. But in the end, I don't think there's a ton of shame losing to Mexico in the gold medal match there at the Gold Cup, in the championship match. I mean, obviously, you want to beat Mexico, certainly. But if you're going to lose to someone out of CONCACAF, it sure as heck better be them. And it was. I'm sure you'll get into it with the reffing situation. I just
Yeah.
I don't know how it's not a handball. Like you can explain it to me 1,000 different ways, and like it's just a nonsense walk around explanation. Like it has to be called. And so there's that. But look, you had some chances, and I had some personal frustrations with what's going on up top.
You aren't the only one, brother.
That's just me. Yeah. I just want guys who look like they're fully invested in the game and look like they're trying to go at full speed. And sometimes it doesn't look that way. So, but yeah, I think it was an okay performance. It's certainly, something to build on. You hear, maybe you sell it this way. You don't learn things from wins. You learn things from losses. And this is a team together, very young, that hadn't really done much together. And so maybe a learning moment. But more importantly, an opportunity to see who should be and maybe shouldn't be in for the World Cup discussion. So fascinated by that too.
No doubt. As always, my friend, great to see you dropping by. And I know that Chipper is probably sitting there going, dude, I'm over this. It's time to go. Plans for Saturday, I think it's you and me, isn't it?
I haven't talked to anyone yet. So if that's the case, then great. We'll be ready to roll. I don't even know what time the game is. Is that 6:30 kickoff maybe?
Hang on. I got the schedule right here. It's 7:40 kick. So it's us. It would be us at 6:30 for countdown, and then the post game show after, because there's a unified match. It's like there's a unified match in Toronto.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Maddie was. She got to get that passport ready. She got to dig it out of her secure documents area and have it at the ready. So that should be a fun trip for them. And looking forward to the game. Like you said, I mean, if we're gonna try and rack up a couple points here, this is probably the last little stand if they're gonna have anything to say. It's tough to believe at this point that they've got a charge in them up the table, but didn't feel like much was happening last year either until push came to shove. So we'll see.
3 games in 11 days after that at Mercedes-Benz. But as always, my friend, I'm glad you are back here with cell service. Oh, who took care of Chipper when you were gone?
I had a pet sitter come and get her, so he made sure she was living the luxury lifestyle.
Okay, and now of course she's absolutely spoiled because of the pet sitter, and now the demands are here like this, I imagine.
Well, now I feel bad that I was gone for 4 days or 3 days, whatever it was, and so we gotta make up for it.
Yep, dad guilt as always, my friend. Great to see you. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks, John.
All right, there goes Abe, who's got cell service now. Abe Gordon back with us after attending a wedding in New Mexico, and then he had his studies, getting ready for everything. Okay, Twitch pitch. Go ahead and lay it out there. And I know that Abby has her thoughts about what it could look like with it being just youngins and youngins alone. And I do not have any advanced intel. I don't. After the scary incident that happened with Brad, where Luis Abram is backtracking and contact is made with Brad. Brad goes down, and the physios came out, and Brad went through all the testing with the neutral doctor and stayed in the match. Like I said, I have no intel whatsoever one way or the other. But keep an eye on that this week, and we will see what it looks like. Obviously, you were hoping for nothing but 100% the best when it comes to Brad and everything. One thing that I did want to discuss, and it has to do with the match that was available to us yesterday on Sunday night soccer. It was more like Sunday afternoon soccer because Apple and MLS didn't want to get in the way of CONCACAF and the Gold Cup final. It was the matchup with Columbus and Seattle. And what was going on late in that match, obviously, once again, it was another scary moment involving Stephen Fry. And Stephen Fry, with the contact, the heavy contact that was made, and he went down and he was in the fighter's pose. And everybody was like, get the physios out there, get the ambulance and all this kind of stuff. And it had gotten to the point to where I want to say it was they were in the 11th minute of stoppage time. And you get to a point to where it was, Brian Schmetzer basically wanted the match called. And he was trying to have a conversation with the fourth and all of this. And Wilfred Nancy comes walking over, and he's hearing the conversation that Brian Schmetzer is having with the fourth about, hey, let's call it, man. This, let's just, focus on the health of Stephen Fry and everybody else that's out there on the field. Wilfred Nancy, after hearing that conversation, initially he wasn't part of the conversation that Brian Schmetzer was having with the fourth in Seattle, but after hearing the conversation and kind of drifting into it, Wilfred is having the same conversation. He joins in on the conversation with the fourth, and he's like, yeah, I'm done. Let's call it. And so after seeing Wilfred Nancy and Brian Schmetzer like, yep, we're done, let's call it, they call the match right there, 1-1, and everybody gets to focus on Stephen Fry and his health. Courtesy of the Sounders, their own selves, here is Brian Schmetzer at the beginning of his press conference last night discussing the situation and what was going on in all of that discussion as they were trying to get help for Stephen Fry, monitor Stephen Fry, and not initially do what Brian Schmetzer and Wilfred Nancy were calling for. Here's Brian Schmetzer after the match last night.
I'm very happy to our medical staff because they did a good job to be careful. We can't underestimate that type of stuff. And certainly Wilfred, I appreciate what he did because the ref wasn't going to stop the game. And everybody knew that the game should have been stopped. So good on him. So thank you, Wilfred. Okay.
All right, with that, we'll start with questions. Maz, the mic is coming from Augusto to you.
Yeah, Brian, I want to just speak to moments like this that where, they're bigger than football, and it kind of
much bigger
focuses all of us to, the greater things about life.
Be better people, nicer to people. Yeah, Maz, for sure. And we all should. The world would be a better place.
That's all I got for you.
Okay.
All right, we'll go to Jeremiah.
No tactics.
Just on the decision there at the end, I assume you asked that the game be ended, and so what was the exchange that you had with the referee on that?
He was going to give a corner. And I said it can't be a corner kick. It's either a foul or stop the game. And then Wilfred, figured out that it's bigger than a corner kick in the game. And then both of us came together, and the ref finally, when both head coaches came together, decided to make the right decision.
So just so I understand, it sounds like Wilfred took it upon himself to sort of say, no, the game it's not like the ref came to him and said, what do you want to do?
No, absolutely not.
Brian Schmetzer last night after the late game injury to Stephen Fry and the conversations that were had afterward, as once again, Brian Schmetzer is trying to monitor the situation with his keeper who is down injured. Physios are out, ambulance is out, and eventually called. And you heard what Brian Schmetzer was saying that the ref wanted to continue the match. Wilfred Nancy comes over. Here's the conversation that Schmetzer is having with the fourth, who I imagine is having conversations through the headset with the lead official. Wilfred Nancy's like, no, no, we're done. Class act, Wilfred Nancy, across the board. And so that was, once again, what happened late in the matchup with Columbus and Seattle yesterday. Obviously, once again, no word on Stephen Fry either, but you heard the initial report from Brian Schmetzer and what happened on Sunday night soccer. Tomorrow we'll go over the weekend that was in more in-depth of a fashion. Once again, the plan tomorrow is to have our friends from Footy Prime come in hour number one. We'll have the Super Friends, all of us coming together, and we'll talk about Gold Cup, Canada, the U.S., the good, the bad, the 11s, the things to think about coming forward, how coaches probably shouldn't insert themselves into conversations involving players and transfers and who should go where, and all of those things. And then, like I said, we're efforting Jessica Charman to talk about Club World Cup and everything going on in Jess's world. So it'll be a pretty busy Tuesday in addition to catching everybody up on what was going on with Major League Soccer. So, okay, let me go through the numbers involving Atlanta United, DC United. We'll go through the stats, and we will run through the numbers in the match in and of itself. Possession, and once again, it's what you do with possession. It's not necessarily the numbers in and of itself. 60-40 for Atlanta United. XG was about the same. Atlanta had the one big chance on the night. And let's see, 2 saves for Brad Guzan and 3 corners, all for DC. 21 fouls called, 12 to Atlanta United. 36 tackles, 25 for DC United. 21 free kicks, 12 for DC. 4 yellow cards for Atlanta and the 1 for DC. Shots on the night, total shots 9-6 DC, shots on target 2-1. 1 shot hit the woodwork. That was the one that went over Brad's right shoulder and almost hit the 90 degree at the far post. Shots off target 6-3. 2-1 block shots Atlanta United, shots inside the box 7-4 for DC, shots outside the box at 2-2. 20 touches inside the 18 for DC, 14 for Atlanta United, 1 offside on each side. Passes in the final third, 82% completion for Atlanta United, 58% completion for DC. 25 long balls for DC compared to 27. Crosses, it was 3-1. Let's see. Then you get your duels numbers. Total tackles, 36. We mentioned that. 8 picks each side. Recoveries about the same. Clearances, 23-21 for Atlanta United. And it was goal kicks, 9-5. All right, let's get into individual numbers. I know that a lot of you have been looking at the younger players that have been a part of what Ronnie Dyla has been putting out there for starting 11s. Let's go to the back line just to kind of give you an idea. Pedro Amador, 7.4, one of the higher ratings on the night. 90 minutes, 4 clearances, 1 pick, 3 total tackles, a dribble passed, 5 of 12 on his duels. 106 touches for Pedro Amador on the night, 69 of 77 passing at 90%, 5 of 9 on long balls on the night for Pedro Amador. Luis Abram, 7.4 on the night. Once again, tied for the highest rating on the night for Atlanta United at the back. 6 clearances, 3 picks, 3 for 6 on his aerial duels, 110 touches, 92 of 99 passing for Luis Abram, 6 of 11 on long balls on the night. Efren Morales, who had a yellow card, and if he did not have the yellow, probably would have had the highest rating in Atlanta United players, courtesy of our friends at SofaScore, made the early statement against Christian Benteke. Basically, body-checked Benteke, took him down, got the yellow card, and that was a reminder to Christian Benteke that Efren Morales wasn't going to be taking any ish from anybody. And once again, Efra made that early statement and played with that yellow card from the 19th minute, I want to say? Yeah, the 19th minute. So Brooks gets the early yellow in the 13th minute, played with that yellow from the 13th minute. Efren Morales played with a yellow card from the 19th minute and worked his way through the game as one of the center backs for Atlanta United. Efra on the night, once again, a 7.4 with a yellow card. 6 clearances, 1 block, 1 pick, 2 tackles. 6 of 14 on his duels. 3 of 8 on the ground, 3 for 6 in the air. 5 fouls on the night committed by Efren Morales. Once again, that early one, that early statement that was made against Benteke, absolutely all for it. Reminder to the big gun that, what happened last time when you got the hat trick, that's not going to happen tonight. And you did not see the traditional activity that you would see from DC, where send it long and Benteke controls it and distributes. I really can't think of a whole lot of instances where Benteke got the ball and was able to distribute it to his left or to his right. Because remember, when he was a part of the goal outburst at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it would be, it would be Efra behind Christian Benteke. Benteke posts up, looks to his left, play right, finds Stroud, and Jared Stroud had a field day because, once again, everyone's so focused on Benteke that no one's focused on Jared Stroud. Stroud has the big day at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That wasn't going to happen with Christian Benteke. Benteke did not go the full 90 as he's coming back from an injury, so he's not quite back to full song. But he only had a 7.0 on SofaScore. Efren Morales a 7.4. 103 touches for Efren Morales, by the way. 89 of 90 passing from Efren Morales, 99% obviously, and then one for one on the dribble from Efren Morales. Also, Brooks Lennon, once again, he had 7.0. Brad, by the way, a 7.2 on SofaScore with what we saw from him. Goals prevented a 0.34, 2 saves, 1 punch clear, 1 save from inside the box. 17 of 17 passing for Brad Gazan, by the way, at 100%. 1 long ball, 2 clearances, and that was what we saw from Brad. Will Riley, once again, we mentioned the younger players that are here for Atlanta United and getting time in the lineup from Ronnie Dyla. 90 minutes from Will Riley. 76 touches, 59 of 66 passing from that midfield position, 89%. 4 for 4 on long balls for Will Riley. 4 for 7 on the ground, 1 for 2 in the air, so 5 for 9 on his duels. Fouled twice, 2 picks, 2 tackles, and a dribble pass. Mateus Glick at a 7.2 on the day. Miggy, Miranchuk, and Saba each high in the 6s, and Latte Lat has 6.1. Then once again, remember, Brooks lasting 76 minutes. Matt Edwards comes in. Tristan Muyumba coming back from injury. So that's something to keep an eye on when it comes to the matchup in Toronto. I don't know, once again, monitoring Tristan Muyumba will be something that is done at the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground this week. How many minutes can Tristan give you? We'll find out. But Tristan came in, gave you 14 plus, subbing in for Mateus Glick. Then once again, Luke Brennan and Jamal coming in for the cups of coffee at the end. For Miggy and for Miranchuk, fresh legs toward the end for Atlanta United. So that was the quick stats in that lineup on the weekend in the goalless draw at DC. I mean, DC, and this was the conundrum that I saw. DC in this matchup, where they looked like they didn't want to make a mistake. They wanted to just kind of get through the 90 minutes and not give up another 7 goals. So you had a line of 5, you had a line of 4, you had Benteke. So literally you had 26 people behind the ball for DC, and it was up to Atlanta to try to find space and opportunities, and they didn't do it. And so it was a frustrating night for Atlanta because DC wasn't really doing a whole lot, kind of hanging out there, making sure that they weren't going to get blown out, or they were playing not to lose, if that makes any sense. And so DC's numbers, okay, now that I'm intrigued when it comes to DC's numbers, you had players in the 7s. Enow and Antley had 6s. Luis Barraza didn't have to take his team to court for lack of support. Peglo, Benteke, Stroud up top. Midfield 4, left to right. Schnegg, Enow, Brandon Cervania, Connor Antley. Then it was Rolls, Bartlett, and Peltola in front of Luis Barraza in a 3-4-3. Something 3-4-3-ish, dropped into a 3-5-2, but it really dropped into a 5-4-1. And yeah, literally, you look at the graphic that's posted from SofaScore, and it's a 3-4-3, and I'm sitting there going, well, Schnegg and Antley drop back, and then you had Peglo and Stroud drop back. So your midfield 4 basically was Peglo, Enow, Cervania, and Stroud, and Benteke was up top. DC played not to lose. Literally, they had 26 players behind the ball. But yeah, bottom line was, in a night like that, where they try to force a mistake and then try to hit you on the counter. Atlanta United did not take advantage and could not find space and could not find opportunities at the end of the night. You end up with a goalless draw. Frustrating night for Atlanta United, frustrating night for fans, obviously. And I think if you're a DC United fan, you're frustrated, but you walk out the door, hey, we got a point at home. So the way things currently stand in Major League Soccer when it comes to the standings, you could tell that it was 13 versus 14 in the Eastern Conference. So after the weekend, Cincinnati, 21 matches, 42 points. Nashville at 41, Philadelphia at 40, Columbus at 38. Then your gap. Miami, once again, Miami has 4 matches in hand that they have to make up at some point. They win them all, they're at the top of the standings. Then whoever plays them in the winner of the 8-9 probably bumps them out. But right now, Orlando starts Group 2, 21 matches, 34 points. Miami, once again, 17 matches played, 32 points. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 and 32 is 44. So, yeah, they would be at the top of the standings if they won out from all those matches they had in hand. NYC at 31, Red Bulls at 30, Chicago at 28. That's your line. Charlotte at 26, news from them. New England at 24, that's group number 2. And then group number 3, DC at 19, Atlanta at 18, Toronto at 17, CF Montreal at 14 with a record of 3-13-5. They've given up 40 goals this season. DC United's given up 39. CF Montreal's given up 40. That's the Eastern Conference. Western Conference, 21 matches played. San Diego at 39 points. Vancouver at 38 with a match in hand. Minnesota at 21 at matches played, 37. That's group number 1. Portland at 33 points in 20 matches. Seattle also at 30 points in 20 matches. San Jose, 28 and 21. LAFC, once again, 4 matches in hand. If they win out, they'd be at the top of the standings. LAFC, 26 points, 17 matches played. Olivier Giroud is now with Lille. Ben Jacobs has a lot of thoughts with LAFC. We'll try and track him down this week. See if he's on this side of the Atlantic still with the Club World Cup going on Tuesday, Wednesday. Houston, 21 matches played, 26 points. 4 teams with 26 points, by the way. LAFC, Houston, Colorado, Austin. But each of them with 7 wins. You go to goal difference. LAFC, Houston, Colorado, and Austin. Houston and Colorado are in right now as the 8-9, separated by 1 goal. Houston, Colorado, and Austin separated by 3 goals, 8-9-10. Kansas City at 23 points, Salt Lake at 22, Dallas at 21. Then you've got all caps at 15 at 3-12-6. LAG at 12 points at 21 matches, 12 points, 2-13-6. They've given up 42 goals this year. 0-8-4 away from home, 2-5-2 at home. So that's what you're staring at with the standings after this weekend. Now, let's take a peek at the Twitch pitch, and I know that a lot of you are looking at young folks, and you're looking at captains further afield, those kinds of things. So let's say hi to everybody this morning on a Monday. Alex, Abby, Ricky. There are reports, Ricky, yes, about Edwin Mosqueda, and it appears that these reports have Edwin being loaned to Millonarios, if I remember correctly. So Mariano Olsen from Win Sports in Colombia has Edwin Mosqueda arriving in Bogota with his rep, Mariano Franco, to finalize his, and this is translated, his incorporation into Millonarios Oficial. So, Millonarios in Colombia. So, there are pictures posted of Edwin Mosqueda in Colombia. There's a picture of Edwin at the airport as he's getting ready to hop on a plane. Then you have, once again, various sources having Mosqueda for Millonarios loan for a year with a purchase option, according to some sources. Pipe Sierra, I believe, was one of the first to release that information as a report yesterday. 167,000 followers, Win Sports, W Radio in Colombia. And the word that he had yesterday, once again, yesterday, so it would have been yesterday about lunchtime. Verbal between Millonarios and Atlanta United for Edwin Mosqueda to become a new player would arrive in Bogota this week, as evidenced by the picture that was at the Bogota airport this morning. With medical exams, a one-year loan with a purchase option. Nothing, obviously, out of Atlanta United, but Pipe Sierra and several other sources have Edwin Mosqueda paired with Millonarios. Nothing official from the club as of yet. So is Edwin Mosqueda the most loaned-out player in club history? I think, three? I think 3 loans, 3, 4, somewhere in there. Morning Lokeville and Ricky said that the Club World Cup games in Atlanta are over. We are going to kind of break that down a little bit. Like I said, tomorrow we are efforting Jessica Sharman. Then we'll hopefully catch up with Jess and find out about her adventure. The fact that she has an Esperance de Tunisie jersey doesn't make me jealous or nothing. But she got to call the Esperance LAFC match with the late pen save. She had a great run in the group stage for DAZN UK paired with Danny Higginbotham, so we'll get into that experience. And now she's getting back into Major League Soccer, and she's got some matches coming up on Apple TV. She had one this past weekend, as a matter of fact, and she had a goalie assist in her match. So Jess is really doing well for GK Union, and we'll probably get into some GK Union stuff with her too. But like I said, efforting Jess. Hopefully we can have her on the 10 o'clock hour tomorrow, and we can break everything down when it comes to Club World Cup, GK Union, MLS, all points in between. So let's see. Morning, Abby. Morning, Ricky. Morning, Michael. And Michael was like, had the privilege of seeing the beautiful game at MBS Saturday, then went to whatever it was Saturday night in D.C. with an UGG. And Abby, with what happened with the Gold Cup, get one of the EPL ref crews. Are you sure you want an EPL ref crew? You sure you want Anthony Taylor calling a Gold Cup? I don't know. I don't know if Anthony Taylor could handle. I don't know if Anthony Taylor could handle CONCACAF final. I don't know. But Abby's like, get one of the EPL crews who won't be doing Club World Cup final to stay instead of a CONCACAF crew. But that's what CONCACAF does. Pars, we are not when it comes to Atlanta United. Pars asking if you're out of the playoffs for sure yet. The answer is no. Not out of the playoffs yet. Still plenty of time when it comes to matches to be played. And let's see. So there's Ricky, there's Abby, and there's Abby's long discussion about players and such. Once again, in the Twitch pitch, Abby has her starting 11. But once again, when it comes to net, we got to keep an eye on Brad. Like I said, I have no intel one way or the other, but concussion and any kind of a head trauma is something that is not to be toyed with under any auspice or circumstance. We've seen Cobb, Morales, and Matt Edwards. Don't know where Dom is right now when it comes to all of his ins and outs and traversing the planet and being there for US U17, U18, U19, all the U's. Then Will Riley, obviously, we've seen him. Aiden Torres. Aiden, I think, was injured, and so we don't know where he is when it comes to rehab and such. And also Togashi coming off of an injury back on the bench, so that was good to see. And we're catching up with Steve Cook later this morning because we have the twos in Kennesaw on grass Wednesday night on the network. So we'll find out what it's like, where things stand right now. And I think Ashton Gordon was injured as well at one point. But we might actually have a twos match. This past weekend, the match with Inter Miami and Messi and Friends 2 postponed because of travel, because of the weather, backed up everything and continued to back everything up. And the twos couldn't quite, they couldn't get out of Hartsfield. They weren't the only ones. So the matchup with Messi and Friends 2, that got pushed back to later on in the year. and the matchup with FC Cincinnati 2, 7:30 Wednesday at the Fraction, 7 o'clock pregame, 7:33 kick. We'll have that one for you on the network. So morning Dell, and Michael's saying, Michael's looking at all the play the homegrowns and looking at Justin Hibbert as well. Emilio, that's a question I don't know. He wants to know how long the leash Garth has. I mean, Garth has had, like I said, don't know. I don't think the game has passed Garth by. Remember, Garth is now Garth is upstairs. He is part of the consultation process. But now that Chris Henderson is in, it is Chris working on the player side and player recruitment and that kind of a thing. Garth is part of the collective, but he is not the guy who's going out there and doing he's not the point of the spear when it comes to chasing players. That is Garth is executive. He is in an executive role. So to answer your question, Emilio, don't know. I think that the leash is there, much like it is for all of us, but I don't know how long it is. And I don't think the game has passed him by. Morning ropes. Let's see. Morning Alex. Only 6 more years left on the Eric Lopez contract. But yeah, and to Michael's point, truly a treat to see such high-level soccer played at MBS. And yeah, the second half of PSG and Bayern was insane. It was absolutely insane. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. But you have that kind of a match, and I think it was just under 66,000 or just under 65,000, and it was a packed house. It was loud. We will have a story coming out later this week involving the ASL initiative that FIFA has been piloting in the Club World Cup, and Atlanta was one of the markets. And we caught up with one of the FIFA representatives and one of the Five Stripes that was there watching and got to be a part of this pilot program involving ASL and interpreters and activity and getting the opportunity to understand the match. It's a really cool story that we were able to be able to at least get the interviews for, and we'll tell that story later this week. So keep an eye out on our socials. But no, it was a really cool thing that FIFA is doing with ASL, and the reason I say that is because we were doing that story as all the chaos was happening in the second half between Bayern and PSG. So it was a really cool story, and we'll let you see that on our socials later this week. So. Yeah, so, and Emilio, that's why he prefaced the whole thing about Garth making the final decisions. I mean, it's like I said, Garth is in the executive. I imagine he has input, and it is a collective understanding as to try and figuring out, okay, can we, go and find individuals like in Ina Mihai and bring them into the fold and see what they bring. Once again, Mihai can't be a part of the conversations on the field until the 24th and so on, but chasing after his ITC and his P1 visa, and we'll find out what happens with Mihai being added, experience being added to the back for the stretch run here this year, and so we'll find out more when it comes to all of that stuff. Okay, with Bart joining us in about 5 minutes. Let's see. All right, let's go ahead. Let me go ahead and drop some news in here, and then we'll get into Gold Cup with Bart and obviously some reffing down here, and we'll look at the U.S. men's national team and all that kind of stuff. All right, so let me get into what we have seen from Ben Jacobs, because there was some MLS stuff that he had dropped into his timeline. Like I said, I want to try and see if he is in fact here still in this particular part of the country and looking at everything here. He mentions Victor Gyökeres, Porto president Andre Villas-Boas on the appointment of Farioli, Callum Wilson leaving Newcastle after 5 seasons. Al Hilal is set to sign Teo Hernandez after reaching an agreement in principle with Milan worth about €25 million. Hilal had tried also for Hernandez before the Club World Cup. They have not given up on Victor Osimhen. Arsenal optimistic on reaching the fee for Gyökeres. Understanding the clubs are discussing an initial 65 million euro fee plus add-on structure is going to provide. Structure is going to be important. Sporting want the add-ons to be achievable and a higher guaranteed payment, and so Arsenal is looking at all that. Genoa is not pursuing Jamie Vardy. Not true that Patrick Vieira vetoed the move. Fenerbahce confirmed Jean Duran has joined from Al Nassr on a season-long loan. Devin Ojek, key to the deal after flying to Colombia for face-to-face talks. Benfica's Vangelis Pavlidis has joined AC Talent. Same agency has Kepa. Pavlidis viewed as a crucial part of Benfica's project. Interest from England, Italy, and Turkey. And Jacobs had mentioned some stuff in Major League Soccer, which was intriguing to say the very least. And it came down to who they might be chasing. And it was interesting about trying to find who their new manager might be, trying to figure out what they might be looking at in the off season or in the window. And so there's a lot to follow. And if you don't follow Ben, I would recommend that you do so at Jacobs Ben, by the way, on the Twitters. And you can look at what's going on there. There's also some news from Tom Bogert this morning. So it looks like Ange Postecoglou to LA being downplayed by sources. Balotelli has been discussed. Thomas Mueller's wage demands make it difficult to proceed. Youngmin Son is a target, but won't decide his future on until late in the window. So that was kind of what we saw from Ben Jacobs. From Tommy Scoops, NYCFC have completed a deal to sign Argentine number 10 Nicolas Fernandez from Elche. Cesar Luis Merlo was first to report that. He'll be a DP 7 + 10 and 2,700 minutes this year. So NYCFC adding Nicolas Fernandez as a part of it also. So a couple of quick moves from MLS and folks from outside the United States, looking at what's going on with that. So that's early returns on a couple of different things involving Major League Soccer, standout performances across the board. Just to give you an FYI, Mukhtar's game-winning penalty at 100 minutes and 1 second. Latest game-winning goal in Nashville history by more than 7 minutes. Mukhtar had the latest at 92:37 until that moment. So that's what you're looking at with them. Bart coming up in a couple of minutes. We'll talk Gold Cup. We'll talk about reffing down here. We'll talk about the U.S., talk about a bunch of different things. Let me get into the other gossip, rumor, and innuendo that might be on the table this morning across the board. Chelsea's expecting £50 million bids on Noni Madueke. Agreed to personal terms with Arsenal over a move. Spurs and West Ham remain in talks over Mohamed Kudus after the Hammers rejected an initial £50 million for the 24-year-old. Victor Gyökeres prepared to give up about £2 million in wages to push through his £70 million move to Arsenal. They were linked with Benjamin Sesko, meaning Arsenal. German club's asking price of €100 million put them off, meaning the Arsenal not interested at that point. Dortmund looking to extend the loan of Carney Chukwuemeka with his £40 million release clause making a permanent unlikely. Chelsea need to raise more than $60 million in sales to be able to register their new signings for Champions League. Crystal Palace closing in on the signing of Ajax left-back Borna Sosa for £2 million. Roma interested in signing 24-year-old Brighton midfielder Matt O'Reilly. Victor Osimhen prepared to join Galatasaray, where he was on loan last year, but the Turkish club will have to pay Napoli £65 million release clause, as the Italian club are not prepared to take any less. Leeds interested in Hoffenheim's Anton Stach, likely to face competition for the midfielder's signature. Everton's Idrissa Gueye has signed a new contract running through 27. Genoa sporting director Fabio Ricciardella agreed to a deal to sign for Jamie Vardy, but according to La Repubblica, Patrick Vieira vetoed the move as he was released by Leicester last week. Norwich have agreed to sign 23-year-old Danish defender Mathias Kvistgaarden from Brøndby. Cologne striker Damian Downs expected to have his medical at Southampton tomorrow. 21-year-old will sign a 4-year deal with the championship club. And since we have mentioned Damian Downs, it's time to bring in Bart to discuss anything and everything going on with Gold Cup. rankings, finals, who to talk about, what to talk about, and all the things. But first and foremost, sir, it was great to see you at Mercedes-Benz on Saturday.
Yeah, John. We were both working, one in an official capacity, the other one just there to, I guess, experience the vibes. I'll let y'all figure out which one was which.
Oh, but before we get into Gold Cup, I want to talk about Club World Cup with you. What was it like? And I saw I saw the photos that you had posted to social media with all the volunteers, and it was really cool to see some of our A-listers and some of our plus ones that were part of the volunteer experience. You, Michael, and Dina, and a bunch of other folks. But what was it? What was the experience like from the and obviously Abby and Ricky and Jordan as well? But what was it like from the volunteering perspective to see everybody come into the building and you guys doing all the different things? What was it like from your perspective?
Well, I think first off, I just have to say that it's a privilege to be able to literally welcome visitors into our home. And I think that was the biggest takeaway I had, is how much ownership I felt over Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Part of that is because I'm in there, daggum half the year anyway.
Yes.
But, it really was cool to see visitors from across the country and across the world walk into our stadium in utter awe of how fantastic it is. And that is something that I know I take for granted at times. I don't know if you do, John, but you walk in. I mean, I'm not there in the same capacity you are all the time, but hell, I've been to plenty of, TIFO and other supporters installations where you walk in and you're like, oh, wow, that's cool. You get to go on the turf for a half second, and then you're in the stadium and it's completely empty. And, you kind of forget to look up and go, man, this is a behemoth of architectural mastery. And that alone was kind of the best part, just seeing all these people in awe of what we have here in Atlanta. It was funny to watch some of these people walk around with the big giant cardboard tub of nachos, as if they've never seen, because some of them have never seen anything like that in the stadium for sure. On top of the other things that Mercedes-Benz has to offer, that was really the special moment, John, is just being able to host these people. And, at little things like, where's the bathroom? And I'm like, walk anywhere, you're going to find a bathroom, it's obviously a little bit more direct than that, but it was kind of nice to be in a stadium that was truly created for fans. I mean, specific to my functional area, I was in sustainability and human rights. We didn't have a whole lot to do because that's one of the things Mercedes-Benz Stadium has on just about anything, right? Is our sustainability initiatives. We're the only LEED certified stadium in the country. Our job was supposed to be basically help people identify where to dispose of their waste. Well, Mercedes-Benz Stadium has that, and then they have teams that go in behind it that also make sure that waste is disposed of properly, and all these things that you don't really think about because you were told it, we're at 8 years ago now, and you go, yeah, okay, great, it's a cool stadium. And now you're like, oh, yeah, this is a cool stadium. So that was kind of the best part of all of this, is just remembering how awesome we have it here in Atlanta.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And when you look at the Club World Cup in and of itself, before we get into Gold Cup, I mean, the second half of the matchup with Bayern and PSG, the whole first off, when you had 66,000 people there for Bayern and PSG, I mean, that's like,
which, by the way, is bigger than both of their stadiums. I just want to point that out. PSG, Bayern, their stadiums don't hold that many. So,
and you had like 11 gazillion people in Mercedes-Benz for this matchup. You had Bayern and PSG in Atlanta. That in and of itself, you had three things that you may not necessarily hang in the same sentence, hung in the same sentence, and the game was ridiculous.
I didn't get to watch much of the game because I am working. I do get to watch some, but we're supposed to be walking around to help people. It was very exciting. And I think there's a lot to be criticized about the Club World Cup from multiple angles. One of them being that this does feel like it was. I got to watch my words here, John. it feels like it was thrown together to be a cash grab tournament. And I do think from my experience with the volunteer crew, there are some highly competent individuals working for FIFA to put on the 2026 World Cup who were tasked with putting this tournament on at the last minute. And credit to them for getting it done. But I think the hope is, as this moves forward, it will be a little bit more of a anticipated tournament than I think this one felt. I'll also say that the dude in charge of FIFA does seem to be, it feels like this is all him. And I think that's a bad leadership style personally. But I think the tournament itself has a lot of promise as we go forward. And I think the first thing I want to say that the Club World Cup has shown, John, and I think it bore true here in Atlanta, is Europe is not the cultural center of this sport.
I mean, you look at what Atlanta was able to do with the matchups that were there, and even if it was matchups at 3:00 on a work day, and schedule makers, and you're still getting 20, 30,000 people in for a random group stage.
Which, by the way, I want to point out that particular match, the Chelsea LAFC match, first off, like you mentioned, 3 p.m. on a work day, a Monday of all work days too, which here in the States is the most important work day for some reason. But also a matchup that featured a team that knew they were playing in the tournament 14 days previously. Exactly. So the low attendance to that match is I think more because FIFA decided that Club Leon can't be part of this tournament for some made up reason. I'm sure if Manchester City and I don't know, Girona happened to have been in the same tournament, it would have been completely fine, but I digress. Yeah. There were Leon fans still in attending, and I know for a fact, because I have friends who are Leon fans here in Atlanta, that had they been here, that stadium probably would have been doubly full. And I mean that sincerely. And I think that is, if you look at that one match, it's the outlier. You looked at what happened when Monterrey came here and the passion and the energy they brought. I do think that you saw how we see it a lot of times in the World Cup, right? You see, I'll give them credit. The Dutch fans always show out well at World Cups. The Brazilian fans, the Argentinian fans, Colombian fans, all these fans that come to World Cups and show the tapestry of support at a World Cup. But the Club World Cup is different in that way, because then you get into the granular, like, oh, well, Palmeiras and Flamengo fans are different, and Boca and River Plate fans are different. I can't say this like legally, so this is not an actual take, but they're very similar, Boca and River Plate fans.
Yes. They do not like each other, yet they are similar, is what you're saying?
But they are very different in the same way. And I think that's fun to see, right? Like, sorry to any of them out there. But it's just, they're from the same dadgum city.
Yes.
In the same dadgum country.
And they don't like each other one bit.
Yet they have such differences. And I think that's same with, a lot of the Brazilian teams. I mean, half of them I feel like were from Rio. So, it is beautiful to see that and how different they are. And that was the biggest takeaway for me from the Club World Cup, is just getting to be part of a truly global event is special.
Yeah, and we got a year to get ready for the other global event, and that's going to be another hoot and a half. The crowd yesterday. Were you with other American Outlaw type individuals watching the match yesterday?
Yeah, of course.
Well, let's see. How do we phrase this? The celebratory option that is normally available and that had been available in other matches in the Gold Cup did not occur except in one instance in the match yesterday. You didn't have four; you had one. So the amount of celebrating and the amount of intake was not as much as traditionally has been in this tournament.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The woo intake was not the same. You look at this matchup yesterday, and it was a late goal by Mexico, and I was like, somebody needs to get me like a Hawkeye or something, or VAR.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been a shoulder that was beyond, but then you have the discussions one way or the other. What'd you think about the goal? Yes or no?
I'm just going to go with, I'm going to have a cop out here and say I think the problem was Alex Freeman retreated a little bit too far. And had he not done that, we would have been fine. I think he moved the line backward too far. He didn't need to. And that put the line in question. I think it's probably one of those where, look, the call on the field was offside.
Yeah.
So obviously you had to have clear and obvious evidence that it was not offside, which, you know, I think they had the lines that they were able to draw the lines, and it showed that they were onside, and that just, it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, look, the line is the line. My opinion is irrelevant, but I think it's more because Alex Freeman decided to track back a little bit too far, and that screwed up the line that we had been calling, or we had been holding, because he was the guy who broke it.
Okay, and so you end up with that late goal. Since we're here, and since we mentioned the late goal and looking at things for VAR, one of the we'll go right into cards and calls. A lot of folks who are USMNT supporters were looking at the handball, which reminded me of Clint Sterner in Knoxville as Arkansas quarterback when his hand is on the ground and the ball is on the ground. And Tennessee ends up calling that a fumble and running it back for a touchdown when Arkansas should have beat Tennessee, and I thought the ball was dead. All right, please explain the walkthrough of this particular incident where yes, handball, no handball, the whys and the wherefores.
So unfortunately, this is a textbook case of that carve out in the rule of two things. One, the kind of natural movement of the body. I mean, the dude is falling to the ground / on the ground. There needs to be some level of expectation that he's going to have to use his arm / hand to get up off the ground. Unfortunately for the U.S., it happened to be that while falling, his hand fell on the ball in a way that was natural.
Yeah.
You know, I think we've talked about this where if you're sliding, right, your arm is going to be on the ground. That's a natural position for the arm. And that's going to be something that's not called a handball. And I think Stuart Holden did summarize it best. It's definitely a hand on the ball, but that does not make it a handball. Unfortunately, you know, this is a law change. This is maybe not a law change, a modification, right? This is an interpretation that we've used recently to make sure that we're not penalizing every single time the ball hits your hand. But it, unfortunately for the U.S. men's national team, while it looks a clear and obvious handling offense, it's not, because of the way that he is moving in that moment. Now, I will say if it hits maybe his other hand after he's started getting up, then I think probably it's a handball. Or I'll also say this, if he is more in control of the ball, right, maybe he has fully gained possession, probably then a handball as well. But in this case, unfortunately, it's just not a handball offense.
Okay, so probably for fans to have a mnemonic device going forward, a hand on the ball doesn't necessarily mean a handball.
Correct.
Okay. Because I know.
Yeah, Abby, I think that's also a good point. Like his knees were on the ground. Like he was in the act of getting up / falling down. Like it was a weird, like he was not, he was trying to save himself, as you know, and look, I get it. You don't want to fall. I mean, I think we've had this a lot of times where like a guy will fall, you know, on the ground, and they'll try to grab the ball because they're like, oh, it's foul. Well, you got to be careful there. But if you fall on the ball, right, and it hits your hand, that you can't, after being bumped or whatever, you can't necessarily just call it a handball. So
okay,
sucks because it was really a key turning point, I think, in the match, especially when you look at Mexico's game-winning goal, right? May or may not have been offside. I think it was probably an onside goal, and that just is what the lines show me. the foul that was called leading up to that goal was a little weak, especially in a match that the referee, which we can talk about his performance, but the referee oftentimes forgot he had a whistle.
Yeah.
And the fact that he called that there was, compared to a lot of the things he let go, both on both sides, but specifically against the U.S., was disappointing. And I think that's, again, where it's like, it's a consistency thing, but this is the problem when you get into the, I'm going to let them play. When you have to tighten it up, it feels unfair.
Mm-hmm. And this was my follow-up in this, is that the crew on the night, Mario Escobar led a Guatemalan crew of himself, Luis Ventura, Humberto Paños, and Walter Lopez. Your reserve AR was Quetzal Corrales from Nicaragua, and you had Costa Rica as your VAR and Benjamin and Yacith Monge. Mario Escobar, and I mean, you can sit there and we can say, welcome to a final A, welcome to a CONCACAF final B, but it legitimately seemed at points that Mario Escobar was just kind of running back and forth and was going to let whatever going to happen. Yeah. And it seemed like whistle optional for a lot of the contact that was out there last night.
That's, I think, a fair assessment of what he was doing out there. I think I was explaining this last night at the party because, John, I think it's the problem with these USA-Mexico games when it comes to refereeing, right? Mm-hmm. Where, in your opinion, John, where are the two, if you're a referee in the CONCACAF region, in which countries are you most likely to get matches of this, not intensity, but quality?
This quality?
Yeah.
The CONCACAF region is USA and Mexico.
Correct. Domestically, despite what people want to say about MLS, the MLS is better than the Guatemalan League. Sorry. Yeah. Liga MX is obviously better than any other domestic league in the region, despite what MLS heads will want me to believe. Those referees now are not available to referee this match. And I know for a fact CONCACAF / any governing body would like to have a referee out there who speaks both English and Spanish, right? Because specifically probably wants someone to speak Spanish because that's fine. So that just narrows down a lot of your places you could get a referee from. And the referee last night, this is not his, I mean, he's out there with his FIFA badge on. He is a FIFA certified referee. He's not, a stranger to high level and intense matches. But the reality is, from a just logistics standpoint, you're not going to get the best referee available because that best referee is going to come from the USA or Mexico. Your best bet, honestly, would have been maybe a Canadian referee. But again, if you get some of the Canadian referees who referee in MLS, is that fair to get, I know back in the day, I forget his name, but he was a shorter gentleman. He was Canadian, but obviously of somewhere in Central American descent because he was a Spanish speaker. He was a short little dude. And he got a lot of the USA-Mexico finals because he spoke both languages, and being Canadian, he was a neutral party. So, I think that's just going to be your problem you're going to run into anytime you have a USA-Mexico final is you have referees who just aren't up to that level, and a lot of referees who probably come from a culture of refereeing that the idea of let them play, let the players decide the final is what it is.
So then after the match, you had Chris Richards say the thing about CONCACAF is that I feel like we're always one step behind with the refereeing.
Well, you were also one step behind in a lot of things today, Chris. So we'll talk about that when we talk about Mexico's first goal.
Right. So then you get into the handball and Pochettino, and that's why I wanted to walk through the handball call with you, because Pochettino said it was a penalty, maybe 2-1 for us, and maybe now we're celebrating the trophy, and this was once again after the match. So, I mean, there's the recency bias when it comes to the sound bites. And Pochettino, after the match, suggested the pro-Mexico crowd influenced the call. When asked about Mexico's second goal, he delved deeper. Quote, In this tournament, Mexico suffered 2 disallowed goals, the same that happened today. It's difficult to disallow the third, but at the end, Montes was blocking Chris Richards when the ball arrived. When the player from Mexico delivered the ball, he was in an offside position. That's it, nothing more to say. Pochettino also suggested the foul that led to the decisive free kick, Diego Luna on Alexis Vega, should not have been a foul. He said that Vega slipped and fell down alone. Say, yeah, but the referee didn't score the goal. No. But please, guys, when I was born with the ball in my hands and my arms. I know very well what it means to play football. I know very well, come on, stop. I think my player doesn't deserve this. I think it's tough. It's tough not to tell the truth. We need to tell the truth. And the truth is that today we lose. Yes, we lose. We need to be self-critical, of course, but the reality is there. Everyone can see. And then Tyler Adams was also asked about the non-handball, and he says he didn't rewatch it. It looked like a handball. When you land on the ball and move the ball towards you, it's going to be a handball normally, but no idea.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I understand why this is a very complicated, and you're not going to get a consensus on this, unfortunately. I mean, it just is. And I think, again, when you have players who understand the game in a certain way but aren't being trained to referee it, you're going to have different interpretations of what happened. And that's just the reality. Unfortunately, I think the referee got this call right. I think someone mentioned in the chat, Dr. Joe's explanation. Mm-hmm. That just is what it is. It sucks because you think that it should be a handball. You do.
Yeah.
Sorry. But I agree with Pochettino about the foul.
Yeah.
Air quotes, heavy air quotes that Diego Luna committed.
Yeah.
To earn that free kick from Mexico.
Yeah.
Like that, I think, is where we can talk is, again, I mean, you let Malik Tillman get kicked up and down the field all night. No yellow cards really shown for it.
No.
But Diego Luna breathes on a guy.
Yeah.
And it's a foul that leads to the game-winning goal. And that, I think, is more of the discussion point than offside, onside, handball, no handball.
Right. And at the same time, when it comes to, and I want to ask this from the perspective of simulation and acting and going down and all these kinds of things, it is all a part of the gamesmanship within the game where you are trying to see where the line is, what the center ref will call, what he won't call. And in this matchup, there was a lot that he didn't get called. But you're trying to figure out, okay, where's the edge? And I think Mexico found the edge and continued to work that edge when it came to falling down and getting pushed and accentuating falling and accentuating fouls and pushes and things like that. If you find that edge and that's where it is, then you're going to continue to walk down that road until it doesn't get called anymore. I mean, it's part of the deal.
John, that's Mexican soccer culture.
Oh yeah, no question.
And that is the difference is in the US, we don't do that. In Mexico, they do. I mean, look, you ain't cheating if you ain't trying.
True.
And, I'll say that Mexico are a bunch of low down, dirty cheaters, to steal a phrase from the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry. They get away with it because that's how the game works south of our border.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality. And you got to play that game sometimes. You just have to. Mm-hmm. Honesty does not go long in CONCACAF.
Mm-mm. It's all about winning. It's all about winning them trophies.
Yeah. And you can. Talent will win out eventually, too. That's the thing, right? I think I want to get to the actual kind of takeaways if we can navigate into that a little bit.
Let's get into our grades and get into our things and get into our stats. We can certainly do that.
I think you can be sad and disappointed at the result last night.
Yeah.
The truth is, Pochettino brought a less than first choice squad to this tournament.
Right.
And I'm not trying to disparage anyone. That's just the reality, right? You have guys playing on this team who are at best fighting for a backup to a backup spot.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you went to the final against a team that, for the most part, was playing their first choice lineup, right? I mean, Raul Jimenez is starting. You can't convince me that's not an A squad for Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there were some players probably they're missing for a number of reasons. Obviously, they had some in Club World Cup, I believe, as well. But like Mexico brought out, I mean, that back line was pretty much what I would consider their at least their, granted the U.S. had that as well. So, Malagon, I'm not sure if he's their starting goalkeeper going forward. I think they're kind of in the same, like they're trying to find the guy after Memo. But this is a much stronger Mexico squad than the U.S. squad was able to put out there,
Right.
Especially when it came to subs off the bench.
Yes.
Orvin Pineda coming off the bench
that's not bad.
is just factually better than Jack McGlynn. I love Jack McGlynn. I think he's a fine player, but like, hay niveles, as they would say.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be mad about this game because of a referee result, I think that's hiding behind the fact, and maybe in a good way, hiding behind the fact that you did not have the talent advantage at all in this game. Mm-hmm. You got outplayed. You got outshot. That is the reality. But the fact that you were a couple of referee decisions from possibly winning the match, I think is a testament to the players who played in this match. I think they rose to the occasion from a tenacity and effort, but the reality is tenacity and effort can only overcome talent so much. And it just wasn't able to do that on the night.
So here's the starting 11 on the night for the U.S. Freeze, Freeman, Richards, Ream, Arfston, Sebastian Berhalter, baby Berhalter, dropping him some dimes. Adams, Tillman, De La Torre, Luna, and Ajima. Who, for just as a refresher, if this was your B lineup, who are some of the guys that were not here? Because I think we need to be reminded.
B lineup?
Hey, I mean.
So we're not talking the first choice guys. We're talking the guys who are.
Yeah, this lineup that was there in this. If this was your B, lineup, to remind folks who was not in camp for this tournament as a part of this lineup, who would turn this lineup from a B to an A?
Well, I mean, on the back line, I think you can argue Ream and Richards are your starting back line. I don't agree with that. I definitely think that we need to move on from Tim Ream. I thought he was fine last night, but we saw throughout this tournament the disadvantage of having a guy whose knees are older than mine, and I don't run very fast. So, but specifically on the left side, you have Jedi Robinson, who would be an immediate upgrade, both defensively and in the attacking sense. Max Arfston is just not a defender. He doesn't defend. He just doesn't. Sorry. On the right side, you have a couple of options ahead of Alex Freeman. Sorry, I thought Freeman was really bad in this game. And I thought that, especially in the Guatemala game and this game, there were times that I don't know it seemed very intentional, but he wasn't doing anything defensively, and that was really concerning. He was marking us the goal box line. Like he wasn't really attacking or marking any player. But so from Freeman's standpoint, you would have Joe Scally ahead of him. And then if he's healthy, Serginho Dest. And then there's other guys who I would play at left back ahead of him, just factually. So even at left back, you maybe have Jedi. I would like to see Kevin Paredes in that position, just kind of maybe going back to his roots as a left back. I mean, I don't think John Tolkien proved anything over Max Arfston, but we have two guys from Atlanta who I think maybe could play left back a little bit better. With Caleb Wiley and even George Bello, who's kind of resurrected his career a little bit. So on the back line, there are a lot of options that would immediately have improved this group. One of those being Joe Scally, who was left off for, quote, sporting reasons. As just is. But if you're talking, how would this get to the A squad? You put in Jedi and Serginho.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then what about what about the attack folks that were missing as well? Like I said, not just the back line, but for the rest of the roster, for folks that were locked in and going, oh my God, we lost to Mexico in the Gold Cup, and this is the refresher of, hey, look, you didn't have everybody there that you're used to seeing.
So midfield, obviously, you're missing Weston McKennie. You're missing Yunus Musa, who, whatever. I think Tyler had a bad tournament, but he's still your guy there. Yeah. You're even missing a guy possibly like a Tanner Tessman or Gianluca Busio, who have played for this team before. And then you're not even getting into, Gio Reyna, who for one reason or another is not here.
Yes.
Whatever.
Play.
Thanks, Dortmund, for playing him all that time in the Club World Cup.
Play some minutes.
Yeah. Up top, look, on the wings especially, love Diego Luna. Did not have a great game last night, but the man can do no wrong in my eyes. He's definitely going to the World Cup, if you ask me today. But he's not better than Christian Pulisic. He's just not. We need to stop that discourse immediately. He's not better than Christian Pulisic. But he's the type of guy that if he's your guy coming off the bench, that's great. I do think Tillman maybe could be a starter in some positions. So I think that's fair to say Tillman is a guy who is at least in your top 13, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right side, it's not Sebastian Berhalter. No offense to Seb. In this particular case, he's not a right winger, nor is, Jack McGlynn, who played there a little bit. I think Quinn Sullivan's your most winger guy, but we just didn't bring wingers. And that's, again, a roster build problem that I have with Pochettino is you just didn't bring wingers. I mean, Alex Andejas is sitting at home. I'm not saying he's great, but he's a winger, So on the right side, you have Tim Weah, who's not here. Well, I guess he was in the country, but not here. He was out on club duty for the World Cup.
Right.
That's automatically, if you had Pulisic and Weah, you're talking about a much better team. A team that actually has goal-scoring threat. And then, John, we got to talk about him. Big Pat.
Big Pat, yeah.
There are no fewer than 17 people ahead of Big Pat, in my opinion, right now, and I'm really sorry. And one of those is the dude you play pickup soccer with on a Sunday evening. I was super unimpressed. I think everyone saying he did well will also be the people who are going to tell me, he deserves to start over Sargent because Sargent doesn't score goals. Pat scored a goal because Diego Luna hit his butt.
Oh boy,
he didn't score in this tournament. He was ineffective anytime the ball had to be actually moved with his feet. He was decent enough at hold-up play. I'll give him that. But hold-up being, I think we kicked the ball at him and it bounced off of him. Anytime it required any sort of touch or control, the dude is useless. I'm sorry, he just is. And if I'm Charlotte, I am cashing that Derby County check tomorrow. Before he is on that plane today because I'm sorry, he's not good enough to be on this national team. I'm not trying to be mean. That is just the fact. You have at least Valerian Balogun and Ricardo Pepi who should start over him. I do not believe we need to bring a third striker behind that. You also had Haji Wright, who was injured on and off throughout the tournament, sent home for that injury, who, while I know has been playing more as a left-sided attacking player for Coventry, would probably have just been a better option up top off the bench at least, and probably would have seen Pat come off the bench a little bit more sooner in some of these games. I'm still, convinced that Brandon Vasquez would have been better because I think Vasquez does more things better. I think if you rate Pat's physicality, maybe that's the only thing he's truly better at than Vasquez, but Vasquez is better at doing soccer than Alguimeng, and that's to me.
But Brandon's got to score too now.
So does Pat. So does Pat. They had the same amount of goal contributions this year, John. They had the same amount of goal contributions this calendar year or this season in MLS. So if they got to score, then why do we call it Pat Alguimeng? So I get your point.
Mm-hmm.
Pat ain't scoring either.
Yeah, I know.
He's got one more goal, but Vasquez has 2 assists.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. He did not score a goal this tournament because I'm not giving him credit for getting hit by Diego Luna's shot. I'm just not. I'm sorry. There were times last night where we needed – he gets touches in the opponent's box because, we kick it to him. But there were 2 incidents last night where we needed him to just control the ball inside the penalty area while facing the goal. Homeboy, the ball went behind him. You cannot have that at this level. Sorry, it's just, I'm trying to be neutral, at least unbiased on him, or not be hot takey, right? He's not good enough to play at this level. He just isn't. And that's okay to say. It's okay. It's fine. He is not ready for this level. It's just a fact. And you know how I have to back that up? He didn't score this damn tournament. If you're going to tell me again that Josh Sargent doesn't deserve to be here, which was the point, because he has not scored, which is a valid point and a valid critique of him. Pat being unable to score in a tournament as well is a problem. I mean, at least with Jesus Ferreira, the dude scored a bunch.
And then he went to Seattle and did.
Yeah. But in those past Gold Cup tournaments, the dude scored.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is that justifies, because that was the thing. And I said this about Pat. He justified the inclusion in March. Again, you have guys injured and missing. Pepe and Balogun were both out. He justified that because he got the call up, deservedly so, for January. That's the whole point of that camp. Scored, great, love it. Justified that call up to March. In March, I think he did enough to justify, again, a call up to the Island of Misfit Toys tournament. And unfortunately, still has a broken wheel.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. It's just the reality. I'm really sorry. It's just, and then I think the other problem that I have is, well, if you put Josh Sargent into this tournament, if you're saying, oh, he doesn't score for the national team, which again, I have said many times, that's his problem.
Yeah.
Josh has not played a Gold Cup tournament since 2019. You're telling me that he wouldn't have found a way to put the ball in the net at some point during the past 3 Gold Cups? I'm just saying that is unfair to judge him, because Jesus Ferreira also has had the issue of not scoring for the national team outside of, bad CONCACAF competition. And that's the reality is, unfortunately, John, you played actually your group stage game with Haiti and Trinidad, and then you played Costa Rica. Those were 3 okay teams. Guatemala's ranking is, I think, deceived because of their, for those of you who don't know, Guatemala was basically barred from competing in FIFA and CONCACAF competition because they were actually cheating and doing some bad financial things. So their ranking is very low compared to where Guatemala actually is, and as a footballing nation. I would expect Guatemala as a team that we're going to be seeing consistently in Gold Cup quarterfinals going forward. That's just my personal opinion. But none of these teams are that good to the point where they're just guys, they're teams on the level of teams you will probably meet in, now that the tournament has expanded to 48 teams. You're probably going to see a team like this in the group stage of the World Cup. And that's fine. You have to beat those teams. I'm not discrediting beating those teams. The point is, when you faced a team that had any real tactical game plan and talent, these guys didn't get the job done. And that's not saying that, I'm not trying to disparage them, because again, this is not you're close to really a selection team. This is at best a B- team, especially when you consider guys coming off the bench, and that was the other problem last night, is you just don't have the depth to compete with Mexico. Again, Brendan Aronson has fallen down a lot in his standing on the national team. But, I like Jack McGlynn. He's not really a game changer at this level. Again, Mexico's bringing guys on who just factually are gonna. I mean, you're bringing in Santi Jimenez off the bench.
Yeah.
Who did we bring in off the bench? Damian Downs, who didn't show out a whole lot this tournament, but from a guy who's about to actually play Bundesliga soccer, hopefully that'll improve his stock and knowledge of the game. But I mean, look, we brought on Damian Downs, Jack McGlynn, John Tolkien, and Brendan Aronson. Right? They brought in Orbelín Pineda and Santi Jimenez.
Yeah, it's kind of
so. Again, hay niveles. Like, there are levels to this, and Mexico is on a different level because the talent they had. Again, Raul Jimenez, Santi Jimenez.
Yeah.
Come on now. Like, they're just those, and I'm not even trying to now throw shade at Pat, but like Pat and Downs, they're not there. They're just not.
Yeah. So Bart Keeler, SoccerForUSPod, hanging out with us here, breaking down everything from gold.
Did you like my Atlanta United mug today, by the way?
Oh yeah. See, you're sitting there and you're
My
going,
name's Rob.
yeah. See, you see, coming into the tournament, U.S. was ranked 16, Mexico ranked 17,
Yeah. Okay.
Canada 30, Panama 33, Costa Rica 54, Jamaica 63, Honduras 75, El Salvador up to 81, Guatemala TNT up 2-100, Guatemala down 1-106.
Yeah. This will be good. I mean, this tournament is going to be good for Guatemala. I think they're going to finally, again, kind of get back the points they had lost for the longest time because they just weren't able to play in, these real. I mean, they weren't part of last qualifying cycle. I think people do need to remember that they were banned.
Right.
So, I think they're better than their ranking, as I think they showed this tournament. But yeah, I mean, look, Costa Rica still gets a lot of the, I think, holdover from some of they're good enough to beat teams worse than them. They have not truly felt like they've pushed the big boys in a while. I mean, they beat us 2-0 at home in qualifying when they absolutely had to win to even get a chance to go, and they would have had to flip a goal differential massively. So, again, it's just one of those where you came across the first team that was actually good and you get the job done. And that's okay because this team is also not your first choice. And many of them aren't second choice. There are going to be guys on this team. Look, there are at least,
as he counts,
6 guys who played in this game who are not going to be part of the World Cup squad whatsoever. Possibly more depending on, who actually is healthy come time for the tournament.
right?
And that's fine. Because unfortunately, the point of this Gold Cup and the point of all these Gold Cups since 2021 seems to be not winning. And I can back that up by saying that you're not bringing your best to the tournament. You just haven't. U.S. Soccer, the USMNT, has prioritized Nations League. They have deprioritized Gold Cup. And that's fine. I understand the reasoning behind it. But it's hard as a fan to then care as much. And it's hard as a pundit to then analyze it in a way that you can extrapolate this data to the full senior national team. The hope is you find 1 or 2 things that you can maybe copy and paste, right? And I think if you look at this as a whole, there are a couple of things that hopefully Pochettino can take and apply to this full senior national team.
One position we have not talked about is the group between the sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Matt Freese got to stand out amongst the group with performances. And it now once again presents an issue and the reminder, not just in the goalkeeper position group, but in position groups in general and in roster construction for the USMNT. Dude, you got to play. And you got to be in a place where you can play regularly. And that is the first difference that we've got that we had the chance to see between Matt Turner and Matt Freese. Matt Freese playing regularly, NYC, and you get Matt Freese giving the performance that he did on the tournament. Matt Turner, who I hope, if the transfer sticks, I hope the man gets paid first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that in the most literal sense, that hoping that his Venmo works from Lyon or his direct deposit works. And if I'm Michelle Kang, I'm cursing under my breath. What is your thought currently on the keeper situation, considering what we thought we had? Then we have an injury, and one of the guys that we normally thought would have been a part of the discussion is not a part of the discussion. So where is the keeper situation?
It's hard, John, because I think first off, we need to kind of read the tea leaves a little bit in the fact that Pochettino gave this tournament to Matt Freese to see what he could do, not as you're better than Matt Turner. I think that is what Pochettino tried to use this tournament for, is to give Freese real competitive minutes to then also compare, and I don't know how much film he's watching, but to compare on film Turner and Freese, right? Because Turner has a plethora of minutes to watch on film.
Yeah.
And also, I think you're right. Matt Turner is not playing for his club a lot. He hasn't, between Nottingham and Crystal Palace, not played a whole lot. And so giving the tournament to the dude who is playing is good. But I also wonder what would happen if Zach Steffen were healthy and playing, if Patrick Schulte had been healthy and playing. And that's where it's hard to make any real assessment of this, because I thought Freese was perfectly okay. He had the best moment he had truly was the penalty kick shootout.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he did anything in any other match that was necessarily better than any other goalkeeper we have. Right. And I'll even take away the gaff he had against Costa Rica, because, look, unfortunately, that's just going to happen on occasion. You're going to miss kick a ball. Plenty of other Americans miss kicked a ball during this tournament. We're not saying they don't need to start ever again. But, I think for Matt Freese, he had a perfectly okay tournament. I'm not ready to tell anyone who should be or shouldn't be the starting goalkeeper of this national team. And part of that is because some of the guys who I think actually would have started and played this tournament weren't healthy and weren't here.
Jarrett, we welcome you from the Mountain Time Zone as Bart sips from his Les Miserables mug in discussing everything involving the USMNT and everything, all points in between. How much of the how much thought have you given after the match last night to what went down with the USMNT after their 2-1 loss to Mexico?
You wanted to pip something there at the end. Ultimately, for me, it's a matter of you didn't send your A team, partially because some of your A team didn't want to come, and they felt comfortable enough not to come and not risk losing spots, which is an issue with depth and development. But this is a multi-year process you're going to have to fix anyway to actually get some cojones through that miserable to play against again. But you didn't. You had to hang on for dear life at a couple moments. There's moments you're going to want back, but yeah, Jason and I talked about it. It feels like Mexico won that game. You didn't make a stupid play like you did in Costa Rica and straight up cost yourself the game. Does that make it okay? And shucks, we'll get them next time. No, you don't ever want to lose to Mexico. I don't really care the format. I don't really care the tournament or who you have. You don't want to lose that game. Like, Bart does not ever want to lose to Pitt is shit. It doesn't really matter about the context. It doesn't really matter about who's available. You don't want to lose those games. I like to think, though, we figured some things out about guys who can be part of the project. Like, Diego Luna is going to be damn near impossible to drop. Does that mean he starts in the World Cup? I don't know. Probably not. Because you've got guys who I think can take it to another level. But he needs to be part of that project. You didn't figure out the striker position. And look, Patrick Ajimong is going to just go ahead and be like one of the more polarizing strikers, I guess, this year. My issue with him is an issue I have with a guy like Brendan Vasquez now, too, in that, yes, he can score goals, but he's at times needed like 4 or 5 chances before he takes a bite of the apple. And look, when you get into major tournaments, you might get 1 or 2. And if you need that quantity to get 1, you're not my number 1. But at the same time, who the hell's the number 1?
Number 1 is either Falarin Balogun or Ricardo Pepi, and they're injured. Like that's the thing to me, Jarrett, is they're 1 and 2. Yeah. They might be interchangeable, but they're 1 or 2.
No, I
Do you
agree
need
with
to
you.
bring a third? And that's the question. That's my question. Do you even need to bring a true third striker if you can bring a guy like Haji Wright? You know?
Like, do we ask like any of these guys to not follow the Matt Turner model? Hey, I know you wanted that big move to Europe, but I actually need you to play if you want to play for this national team. Go find a place and go start scoring goals like you're playing FIFA. Please, God, just go get some confidence and go get some rhythm in your life. I don't care if you can walk around town and tell everyone, "Oh yeah, I'm playing in the championship. How much you playing? Started 4 games. Featured in another 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, doing great, guys. Like, great. That does nothing for me as a national team. Like, go get minutes. Someone, for God's sakes, someone separate from the pack here, because I think you're right, but I don't know who else. I don't know who else can be part of that. Like 2 years ago, Brandon Vasquez was the guy I was very, or 3 years ago. I was very disappointed Brandon Vasquez didn't go to the World Cup. Not because I thought he should be starting, but because I wanted his ass for depth. Because he was in a moment while playing in Mexico where he was scoring at will, and he is just enough of a water buffalo where you could have thrown him out there and said, look, we're in the tactics-free zone. You've had a nose for goal for the last 6 months. We're in the tactics-free zone. Go make something happen. But he's not that guy right now anymore. Either. Like every time I watch Austin, I'm fascinated by the number of goals he leaves on the field.
Yeah.
I don't know who that guy is.
Well, I think my problem right now, Jarrett, is we tried Pat Aguimong, and whether he's good or not is, I'm sorry, I've made up my mind. I have.
I think he's a solid player. I don't know if he's a national team guy. Those are. I don't know. For me, I think he can be a solid player. I think he can be a lesser version of what Daryl DK was when Daryl DK was actually a healthy human being.
Yes, he's Dollar General. Daryl
All right, that's settled.
Dollar General for the
Dollar General Daryl DK.
Well, look, here's the thing:
Look, Daryl DK was special when he was healthy.
Right. But if we're doing all this, why didn't we just try a Jordan Pefok, who scoring goals, but does all the things that Pat apparently does? Right? He's big, he's tall, he heads the ball, he can hold up the ball. I understand that he had his moment and missed it, but again, it's like we're just trying a new guy versus, okay, well, let's see if a guy who we had tried, maybe he's improved. It's just, there's so many names in this hat, and I'm telling you that the two guys are Balogun and Pepe. People forget Balogun balled out for the U.S. last summer in Copa America. He really did. He was our most consistent and best player last summer. And Pepe has always shown up when he gets the opportunity for the national team. I'm sorry, it's just those two. If you're having this conversation about the third striker and you're going to have hot takes that Pat Aguimong needs to be there because you're wrong. But also, again, my take is I'd rather just bring Haji Wright, and he can play a position or two across the front line. You also have a guy like Tim Weah who, if you want to get real silly, you can put him up there as well. There's just more options than bringing a guy who's not very good at soccer. And I'm sorry, he's just not.
Good enough for the championship to spring $10 million for him. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Well, I would argue the championship is not soccer. It's kickball, it's headball, and he'll be good at that.
The blanking street fight.
Look, hey man, I guess as we say all this, I also give Aguimong credit though. He got his ass beat up last night, and he earned some free kicks in tough areas. And playing that hold up role in CONCACAF is not for the faint of heart. Not to say just him. It's any striker in the world. If they tell you, "Hey, we're playing like Mexico or Costa Rica or Honduras," you're playing as a striker. What do you need to do? Oh, you're gonna die. You're gonna need an ice bath. It's gonna be ready for you when you walk off the field. It's a tough role. He did it. I wanted him to put one of those chances home. Absolutely. And like I said, to be a World Cup, to be a starting striker for a team trying to make noise in the World Cup, if you get that chance, you've got to put it away. Whether you think that's unfair or not, I don't know. But in a major tournament, those chances don't just happen a ton. This isn't a video game. You don't get 4 or 5 cracks at it.
Jarrett, would you say that is the criticism of Josh Sargent?
Why, yes, that was what I was going to ask about next.
So that's my problem, is if we're going to have that same energy for Josh Sargent, a dude whose only goal came because he got hit in the back by Diego Luna.
Yeah.
So, like, I get what you're saying. I think Pat's hold-up play was better than anything we've seen from the U.S. in a very long time because he is big, he's strong, he's tall, great. I maintain that his hold-up play was the ball bouncing off of him and happening to go to a teammate, but whatever, he at least did hold the ball up decently. I'm not seeing a way for him to start for this team. And I agree, if you want to do the, hey, we're down a goal, we need a goal, fine, maybe that's him. But he didn't show me any particular skills this tournament that led me to believe that, oh, he can score. He might get in a position, but if it requires any sort of technical touch, it ain't going to happen from him. I'm sorry. At some point, you have to be real. The dude does not have the technical ability that is required to play at the international level. That's why he's going to go play for Derby County in the championship, where they're going to kick the ball up to him 50 million times a game, and he's going to head it to somebody because that's how you win the championship.
And he's gonna produce in that system.
Yeah,
and more power. I hope Patrick Agimon gets paid beautifully, and I hope he lives an incredibly comfortable life and becomes a legend, whether it's at Derby or anywhere else. I hope he has a productive and comfortable existence, because dude was balling out in MLS Next Pro and has parlayed that into a move to England. I will give him all the credit in the world for that. I will happily take him in some tournaments in the tactics-free zone. The same reason I would have thrown Alan Gordon on at the end of the game, at the end of his career. The same reason I would have taken Brandon Vasquez to cutter. I got better options to start with in terms of how I want to play tactically. But if I'm lobbing balls in the box, or I'm sending a ball long and I need a what amounts to a bull elk to chase it down, then I'm fine making Patrick Agimon that guy.
Bull elk.
I'm not starting him.
Nope. Bart, we've given you a lot to talk about on the Soccer for USPOD. What's the run before the next episode? We're
going to record tomorrow night, and we will be talking about all the things that we just talked about and more.
Yes.
So, look.
Heavy.
I'm glad we made the final. Yeah. I think you can look back at this tournament and go, there were some and look at some players who showed well. I'm not going to say impressed. Showed well.
Yeah.
And there are some players who didn't. It's just the reality. I think there are maybe 3 things that we took from this tournament that are possibly maybe applicable to the senior team as a whole. We'll talk about those things on the podcast. But is that enough to make this experiment work out?
Yeah, we will see. And as always, looking forward to the next edition of the Soccer for USPOD, which you find here on the network, where Bart gets to talk about everything USMNT and USWNT and all the things, and Gold Cup and all points in between. So continue, please, taking sips from your morning beverage from your Les Miserables mug. And as we always...
my Atlanta United mug, John. It's my Atlanta United mug.
Yes. Yes. One more day, one day more, and you'll get your new Soccer for USPOD. As always, my friend, great to see you on Mondays. And if you need a note from the principal's office about hanging around as long as you did, let me know.
Thank y'all.
Have
a good Monday.
Yeah, there you go. There goes Bart. And there goes, so Jarrett, final minutes of the show with you. And we did talk about Atlanta United, but we have not had your thoughts about Atlanta United. Yeah, I know. It was a frustrating night across the board, and it was against a team that really didn't want to play and had 26 behind the ball, and you didn't find space and very little opportunities. And now you've got you have one more match on this roadie for the Club World Cup roadie, where you're in Toronto, where they've lost 4 of 6, and it's one last chance to get full points before you come home for 3 in a row.
This was the road game to win. And the next one might be too. Like, I get Toronto is also not good. But this was the road game to win because DC was pretty content to just sit behind the ball and wait for you to do something dumb, which you did a couple times. I was having a nice little bout of deja vu when Miguel Almiron, who at times is playing like somebody playing FIFA with their My Created character, and they're trying to rack up stats, and he's just all over God's creation, and he's dropping back and making a bad pass in his own third and almost handing DC a golden opportunity. Like, I don't know, man. Like, they seemed pretty content to wait for you to do something dumb, and you did something dumb a couple of times, and you almost handed it to them. Efrain Morales was the best player on the night for me, and he saved your clean sheet. He saved you from getting an embarrassing 1-0 loss at DC. Because, DC was content to let you make the mistake. And you did. You just didn't get punched for it. And you didn't create anything. And, look, credit to Efra, who had shown well at Bolivia, trains well, and is taking these moments right now to start because you have guys out. Good on him for it. It'd be really cool if he just never gives the spot back. But you also have a new defender coming into the fold as well, which is going to complicate things. Yeah. That's great. What's not great is the fact that your $50 million attack's not doing anything. The fact that your midfield right now looks like they have no concept of how to play together, how to interplay, how to interchange, how to combine, how to really do anything together. And I don't know how you fix that. If I did, I would probably be back in Atlanta and dropping my resume on the desk. Yeah. It's great that you got the clean sheet. It's a nice change of pace. The inability to put the ball in the back of the net is one of the greatest mysteries that I have seen in Atlanta sports in a long time because of the money and the talent that you put out there. It was a really fun couple weeks where Alexei Miranchuk was cooking, and he still is going to try some crazy stuff, and I personally can live with that a lot because he's going to put the ball into insane spots and times, and when it comes off, and you have like a game-breaking play. But yeah, man, like Miguel Almiron is all over the field. Don't know where he is or what he's doing half the time. He pops up next to people, and the spacing is weird. Emmanuel Latte, but also I've watched him now in the lines miss multiple golden opportunities to break that duck, and he hasn't done it. I don't know. Saba is always, has always, and will always be a very streaky player, and it's why I was excited in the preseason because I thought if you had a functioning right winger, didn't realize we were going to end up with this, that he could have been option C and could have thrived in that situation where you weren't counting on him, where when he's hot, you could ride the hot streak because he is just a streaky player. And if he's not helping you take over a game, then so be it. It's just I'm fascinated, morbidly fascinated, I suppose is the word I would use, for how you jumble together these pieces that are expensive and individually talented, and it doesn't work at all.
Yep. We will have that discussion continue during the week. Obviously, we will have the Club World Cup discussion tomorrow. involving GK Union injuries, response to injuries, and things like that. We'll get into that because that's going to take a little bit of time, involving the injury to Jamal Musiala and all the circumstances and the fallout after that.
Yeah, and Manuel Neuer can take a
Yeah,
long
and
walk,
the
man.
sporting director too.
Manuel Neuer, like, I would love to know how many memories he knocked out of cup. Look, every goalkeeper goes full stretch, full tilt on stuff. Thibaut Courtois came to Donnarumma's defense, and that's a weird spot that we're at. It stretched out to try and where's Jess when I need her? GK
Tomorrow,
Union, I may have to be here.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow
Tomorrow at 10 playing.
Well, the thing is, when you stretch like that, when you've made yourself that exposed, goalkeepers get so stretched out, and you're basically like a deer on a rack. And it is incredibly dangerous and incredibly risky in those moments. And I, if I'm not mistaken, Neuer and Bayern Munich's issue was more to do with the reaction from Donnarumma, and I guess he didn't go over there and apologize as quickly or the way they wanted him to. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know.
Well, they were upset with the play, saying that he didn't have to respond the way that he did. You know, he didn't have to dive in at 100% or whatever it was. But like I said, we'll go over the quotes. We'll break all of that down tomorrow, and literally we'll walk through it, and we'll see if Bayern has any other addenda that are attached to the situation. We'll get into that tomorrow. And we will also discuss a giant inflatable pigeon. We'll get into that tomorrow, too. That will be available for folks if they look up in New York City. A giant inflatable pigeon.
All right.
During the Club World Cup. Jarrett, last words are yours here on a Monday.
Summer window is coming. We'll see what Atlanta does. There are already rumors Edwin Mosquera possibly leaving to go to South America. I know people would want it to be an outright sell, but Edwin Mosquera's deal is about to be up soon anyway, so this might just be a matter of get him out of here for now, and then when the loan is done, even if they don't buy him, he's gone. Like, his contract is over, and I cannot imagine a world in which you're renewing his contract. Will there be other moves? Maybe. If they can make it happen, I wouldn't be surprised, because you have to basically get this thing on the lifts and start pulling pieces out. So we'll see.
There it is.
Mucha platiel.
Yes, mucha platiel. Play it safe. Enjoy everything. We'll be back at it again in a little less than 22. It's the end of the show. That means we do this.